away. I got a right to sing the blues. I got a right to moan and sigh. I got a right to sit and cry down around the bay. I know the deep blue sea will soon be calling me. It must be love sings shoes. I got a right to sing the blues.
Well, that's how it goes when you're living in a sheep hotel. Yeah, that truck goes loudly crying in a cheap hotel. When a woman loves a man, they really do go to hell. Well, I'm gonna change my ways and live the life that I choose.
I'm thinking of a good time.
I'm gonna change my ways and live the life that I choose.
Just thinking of a good time. But till I get what I need, don't try to take away my right to sing the blues.
Well,
I know the deep.
The Thames summer season continues at the same time next week with the young Swedish trumpeter Håkan Hardenberger's Night at the Opera.
ITV, as ever, bringing you the best in new drama.
Mr. Rumpole, are you cross-examining me?
Heaven forfend.
From Rumpole to Glasgow's finest, the return of Taggart.
I'm running this investigation.
I thought I was using my initiative, sir.
Well, use it.
And in a new role, John Thor, having trouble with his women.
Stanley Duke, can I help?
Keeping a list.
Yeah.
I was on it once.
Memories of the past are also stirred by the return of Leslie Titmuss, and he's a long way from paradise.
Why? This place is reserved for nature.
They don't seem like your sort.
And what do you think my sort is exactly?
I'll tell you when I get to know you better.
And making a most welcome return, Arthur Daly.
One owner, a nervous nun, never driven at night. This one over here, never left the country estate of a member of the House of Lords.
A new series of Minder, soon on ITV.
We're off to Wentworth next on Prisoner Cell Block H.
Kenco, the coffee experts, have now put all their coffee know-how, freeze-dried, in a jar.
Kenco in a jar. The same quality of beans that gives Kenco ground coffee its superior taste. So, next time you make coffee, remember, that's all Kenco have ever done.
Kenco in a jar, the coffee experts' coffee.
The way you wear your hat, the way you sip your tea, the memory of all that. No, no, they can't take that away from me. The way you smile just beams, the way you sing off key, the way you haunt my dreams. No, no, they can't take that away from me. No, they can't take that away from me.
I didn't know Gary could cook.
Right, what have we got in here?
Any burgers?
How about Bernard Matthews turkey burgers?
Okay, hit it!
Bernard Matthews Crispy Crumb Turkey. Wipes out germs and freshens up.
The new refill pouch from Ariel Liquid puts a little less waste into the environment and a little more money into your pocket.
Less in the environment, more in your pocket.
Oh, fruits are fruity, everyone's a real beauty. They're deliciously mouth-watering and fun and chewy too. Oh, fruits are tangy, so refreshing, and they ought to be reduced to real food enough for flavor through and through. They're made to make your mouth water like nothing else can do.
New Argos catalogue, take one.
Ooh.
Cut! 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 I said take one!
The new Argos catalogue is out now.
Full of enjoyment, your Whiskas cat. And Whiskas is full of extra enjoyment now that there's new Whiskas Crunch. Specially made to add a tasty crunch to his whiskers, so it enjoys Whiskas even more. Cats instinctively know what they like and what's good for them. Cats would buy Whiskas.
You can help stop violent crime. If you have information about any crime at all, call Crimestoppers now.
This is Thames Television. Now, why is B in the pharmacy?
Half a dozen lousy aspirin. That's all I'm asking for.
Come back in 4 hours if it's still bothering you. And if it is, I'll arrange for you to see the doctor.
Thanks a million.
I mean, I've always been against fighting. It seems so unnecessary to hurt each other.
Really? I thought you were in for murder.
Well, I can explain about that.
Who the hell do you reckon you're pushing around?
Get up against the wall.
Stand up!
Oh, yeah. You don't look too good, Kate. Maybe you should see a doctor or something.
Let's eat.
Yeah. Kate!
Who got you, Brian? Anyone with her?
Yes.
That duck's Doreen. I think the other one was called Hazel.
Do you believe me now? Do you understand about those slobs?
Don't worry. We'll pay him back.
But no more talking, okay? I told you before, they only understand one thing. So, are you with me or not?
Yes. You can count me in.
Bloody Kate Peterson, she's a stuck-up bitch, all right. Reckon she...
He used to give me roses. I wish he could again. But that was on the outside, and things were different then. On the inside, the sun still shines, and the rain falls down. But the sun and rain are prisoners too. When morning comes around, last night I dreamed we were together, sharing all the love we'd known, till I had to face the nightmare of waking up alone. On the inside the roses grow, they don't mind the stony ground.
Deborah Raffin, star of numerous TV miniseries, takes a chilling step into the Twilight Zone next.
Golden crackles, so crisp and sunny. Golden wheat and golden honey. Golden crackles, right on the money. Golden crackles, the golden taste of wheat and honey.
When it comes to taste, trust Kellogg's to set the gold standard.
Golden crackles.
Call our party line now on 0898 60 60 60 and speak to new friends all over the UK. Just dial 0898 60 60 60.
Chocolate. Oh yeah. Caramel. Mmm, crunch. Twix fits.
Spring is always in the air with Haze.
This is Thursday's Nighttime on ITV. In a couple of minutes, we enter the Twilight Zone. And then at 1 o'clock, the coverage continues of the World Chess Championships. In the heat of the nights at 1:15, and our continental movie is a murder mystery with political connections. Jean-Louis Trintignant stars in Forbidden to Know, that's at 2:10. We've more antics on The Funny Farm at 4, and there's another chance to see this week's America's Top 10 and video fashion at 5 o'clock. Now we cross to ITN for the latest headlines.
A man has been killed tonight by a bomb blast in the centre of Belfast. It happened near the Springfield Road Police and Army base, but the RUC say the dead man was not a member of the security forces. Bomb disposal experts were called to more than 30 alerts in the city and were forced to blow up some suspect devices. Earlier, a former member of the Ulster Defence Regiment was shot dead in front of his wife and 2 children at a farmhouse in County Tyrone. Police have found the body of Paul Pearson, the 7-year-old from Cleveland, who was reported missing on Wednesday. Paul's body was found in a dried-up stream 2 miles from his home. His bike was found on allotments nearby. He was cycling from a friend's house when he disappeared. Murder squad detectives are checking possible links with the murder of another 7-year-old, Angela Flaherty, in Huddersfield. Hopes are fading for 3 Britons and a New Zealander trapped in a diving bell at the bottom of the South China Sea. It's thought their oxygen has already run out. The diving bell was attached to an oil barge which sank in a typhoon. More than 170 survivors were picked up by British and Chinese military helicopters. That's it for now. We'll have more news later.
Tonight's continental movie is a family affair, starring Jean-Louis Trintignant and directed by his wife Nadine. It's a political thriller with a twist. Forbidden to Know is at 2:10. Now, there's something in the walls.
Which Way, the careers programme for school leavers, returns to our screens with advice and empathy from the experts.
The best thing to do then is to talk to somebody about what they want to do, but also explain that they do need to have backup plans, they need to have other ideas.
The studio panel will be there to answer questions live on air.
I would advise you to look at polytechnic, history or humanities courses, or courses at colleges of higher education.
And you can reach our careers experts throughout the day on the helpline, Which Way, Friday morning on ITV.
This is Nighttime on ITV. If you're a fan of the Comedy Store's unique talents and improvisational humour, don't plan an early night. They're at the Funny Farm later. That's at 4 a.m. Now, let's join Raymond Keene for the chess.
Hello and welcome to the last of this week's exclusive reports on the World Championship quarterfinals. Today we reach the halfway stage in these best of 8 game matches, and as usual the Thames Television chess team will bring you all the results here first. Of course the main interest centres on Nigel Short's match against Boris Gelfand, especially after Nigel's dramatic win yesterday, which gave him a 2-1 lead. Gelfand is one place ahead of Short in the world rankings, and we asked Nigel whether this has affected his approach to this match.
I'm now the highest rated player in the world outside of the Soviet Union, but this doesn't really put any extra pressure on me, because I've been in this position before. I have been as high as number 3 in the world. So I know what it's like, and I think also people don't expect anything of me anymore, so I can feel very calm and relaxed. Another thing is that I don't take so much notice of ratings myself. I think the most important thing is the World Championship cycle. If you can do well in that, it means much more than having a very high ELO rating.
So Nigel has obviously focused his mind on this World Championship match, and he maintained his form playing black today. But after sacrificing a rook for bishop, his position failed to stay together, and for the last 20 or so moves he found himself fighting a rearguard action. This is the adjourn position. Now you can see that Nigel has a rook against Gelfand's bishop, but Nigel has an extra pawn, and all the action is bunched together on the king side of the board. Now although Nigel's material down, I really don't believe that Gelfand can break through. Everything is too fixed in one point. So I'm confidently predicting that tomorrow the game will end in a draw. So Nigel stays 2-1 ahead, and they will complete this game tomorrow. Let's update the other scores after today's 4th round. Ivanchuk and Yusupov both seem to be in search of inspiration today, but couldn't keep up the pace of their previous games, and drifted to a draw after just 35 moves, so this match remains level. Korchnoi and Timon drew today, so Timon retains a healthy lead in their match. We're going to take our first look tonight at former world champion Anatoly Karpov. His match against India's highest ever rated player, Viswanathan Anand, has so far been a catalogue of missed opportunities, with both players failing to capitalise on overwhelming positions. Karpov was lucky to be level going into today's game, which started with a quiet Queen's Gambit. In this position, both sides have castled. It's a very standard position, nothing special going on. It's just a question now of who plays better in the middle game. It's Black's move, and Anand took the pawn. Karpov, naturally, took back. Queen e7. And Karpov played a little safety move on the edge, typical Karpov, pawn to h3. Anand repaid the compliment on the other side of the board, where Black's chances really lie. Karpov advanced in the centre, and now White's threatening this, which wins a piece, forking the 2 black minor pieces. So of course Black must react, and he played e5. Karpov supported his centre, and b5 attacked the white bishop, which retreated to f1. Anand continued his queenside counter-attack, and Karpov took the chance to create a protected passed pawn in the centre of the board. Normally an advantage, but here the pawn is very heavily blockaded by the black bishop. Anand pushed his pawn, and Karpov attacked the black wedge of pawns on the queen's wing. Rook to b8 defends the pawn. A takes b5, and A takes b5. And now the question is, are the black pawns on b5 and c4 strong, in the sense that they can advance, or a source of weakness? Karpov's next move, rook a5, tried to prove that they're weak. He attacks the pawn and forces it to advance. White's knight must move, and it comes here, knight to a4. So the black pawn on c4 is well advanced, but also attacked twice by the white queen and the white bishop. And if Karpov can take that pawn, he's going to win easily. Anand has to conjure up some counter-attacking possibilities. Queen d8, a retreat, but the white rook on a5 is exposed. It's under attack, and it must move rook a7. On comes the black pawn, hitting the white queen. And if white takes the pawn now, which must have been his original idea, then the move rook b4, attacking white's queen, is extremely inconvenient. So that didn't happen. I'll put the pieces back. In fact, Karpov had to move his queen to e2, which wasn't what he had in mind, I'm sure. Out comes the black knight. Knight takes. Bishop takes. And the white rook on a7 is now under attack. It has to go right back to a1. So white's attack on the queen side has ended somewhat ignominiously. And now things started to get worse. Anand played his pawn onto c3. This is a really annoying thrust for white, because if white takes it, the black pawn on b3 is passed, advanced, and a real thorn in white's flesh. Karpov didn't accept this gambit. He instead took the pawn on e5. So we now have a razor-sharp position. Black passed pawn in white's guts, right in his vitals, but white a pawn up with a huge central pawn majority. Anand tries to get counterplay, attacking the knight. Knight c6, hitting the rook. Rook b6. Bishop e3, trying to trade pieces. He couldn't save the pawn on e4 in any case, so Anand takes it. White trades off. And the knight must take back. Rook to e3, attacking the black queen. And the queen goes to d7, out of the attack. So let's look at this position for a minute. It's quite incredibly complicated. Very difficult to say who stands better. Material for the moment is level, but black has this enormous passed pawn on the c2 square. But of course black's pieces, after this move, queen to c4, are not well coordinated. The knight is attacked, and if it moves, then the black pawn on b3 can be lost. So Anand tried to complicate the issue. He sacrificed his rook for the white knight. Rook takes knight. Karpov, of course, recaptured. Now white is what's called the exchange ahead. But now a dramatic move. Queen right into d1. And white can't take that. Black takes back with his giant passed pawn, makes a new queen and wins a rook. Karpov's only got one move. Rook back, retreating. Double attack on the black queen. So this sortie has at least forced back the white rook, but it hasn't resulted in black winning the game yet. Queen goes back to d6. Now Karpov must try very hard to consolidate his position. Queen c3, queen to d5, still protecting his pawn on b3. And Karpov uses his own trump. Don't forget, his pawn on the c-file is also passed. Bishop to b7. White must be very careful now. He mustn't move his bishop on f1, because queen takes g2 would be mate. Instead, Karpov continues the theme of attacking the exposed black pieces, especially the knight. The knight comes into e4. A surprise, because the black queen can be taken. And Karpov took it. But black can also take the white queen. Knight takes queen. And if white takes this back now, pawn takes knight, a horrific army of black passed pawns comes on, and black must win the game. He will queen both pawns. This is a dreadful position for white. He can't do that. So let's put the pieces back. In fact, Karpov played this, rook to d3. But after this move, knight a2, black still has some tricks. He's rook for knight down, but he's threatening to play c1 equals queen, winning a whole piece. How did Karpov cope with this? Rook takes pawn, attacking the bishop. The bishop moves away, of course. And now bishop c4. This is a fantastically good move, and we'll see why in a second. It looks as if black can queen his pawn now with c1, but first he plays this safety move to make a hole for his king. It doesn't make much difference. And Karpov places rook to a3 with a double attack against the black knight on a2. What can black do? Finally, at long last, he must push on his pawn, the whole point of his game strategy. c1 promoting. And white must take off that promoted pawn. Nothing to do about that. And the knight must recapture. So black is now a whole piece up, and probably Anand thought, well, white's got those two passed pawns and I'm a piece ahead, maybe at last I can beat Karpov. But the final point of Karpov's brilliant play, which he must have foreseen 10 moves ago, he now plays rook to c3. This is beautiful. The white rook attacks the black knight. The black knight has no escape square. It can't go to a2 or e2. The bishop can take it. Suddenly, Anand, from winning, realises he's losing. He plays rook e8 despondently. Rook takes the knight on c1. Rook e7. Bishop f1. And here, poor Anand resigned. He has no defence to this and this. Completely hopeless. A wonderful game by Anatoly Karpov. So at last Karpov has broken through to lead at the halfway stage. There's action in all of these matches over the weekend as they head towards scheduled completion next Thursday. If any of them are tied after 8 games, the players face tie breaks against the clock. We'll be back with regular reports every night next week, so you won't miss any decisive moves. Do join us on Monday. Till then, from Thames' chess team, it's goodbye.
A young boy and his grandfather are the suspects for murder in the heat of the night after the break.
Good night. Good night, Lucy.
You're supposed to be in New York.
I didn't like the coffee.
Golden roasted, richer, smoother, Nescafe Gold Blend.
I thought you might have joined me in New York.
Whatever gave you that idea?
This.
Along with cutting down on fatty foods, there's another common sense way that may help reduce cholesterol as part of a low-fat diet. Oat bran. So why not try these? Oat bran flakes. They're from Kellogg's, and they've got common sense written all over them.
Rugby World Cup on ITV.
There's a treat for Elvis fans in Friday's night time with a special tribute to the King at 12:40, a portrait by his friends, and then the regular drama series Elvis Good Rocking Tonight at 2. Now we visit Sparta.
In the heat of the night, I've got troubles wall to wall. In the heat of the night, must be an ending to it all. But hold on, it won't be long. Just you be strong and it'll be alright. in the heat of the night.
Goldie's got a new job.
Protocol.
Protocol! The customs and regulations dealing with the ceremonies and etiquette of the diplomatic corps. It's a job.
Bravo, Sonny.
Oh, bravo, Your Excellency.
Sonny Davis?
Yes. Oh, is something wrong? Should I get my coat? Protocol!
Next Monday at 8.
Before tonight's continental movie, Phil Roman at ITN has the headlines. It's 2:10.
A man was killed in Belfast late last night in a bomb attack near a police and army base. It happened during a wave of bomb alerts and gun attacks against the security forces.
West Belfast was in the grip of terror.
Come on, there's been an explosion, move!
Explosions and bursts of automatic gunfire sent troops and police diving for cover. The man who died was named locally as 23-year-old Jim Woods. A single man, he was a voluntary church worker who wanted to become a priest. He died in a loud blast on waste ground on his way to visit an elderly aunt. The circumstances of his death are still being investigated.
The United Nations has just voted to let Iraq sell oil to pay for food and humanitarian supplies. UN Security Council members agreed to allow a one-off oil sale worth up to $1.6 billion. The search has been called off for 3 Britons and a New Zealander trapped in a diving bell at the bottom of the South China Sea. Their oxygen supply has already run out. The diving bell was attached to an oil exploration barge which sank in a typhoon. More than 170 survivors were picked up by British and Chinese military helicopters. That's it for now. The morning news is at 5:30.
The film for Saturday's nighttime is a Spanish-Italian espionage caper about fiendish foreigners out to cause trouble between East and West. Electra 1 on Saturday at 1:05. And talking of continental movies...
All the world's a stage. All the men and women merely players.